What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how to do something that can save you a lot of money in the long run, especially if you find yourself throwing out XLRs. It's important for an engineer to know how to solder because, like I said, it can save you a lot of money in the long run. If you have a cable go bad, but it's only as simple as one cable got disconnected, you can always cut it back and resolder a new end on, and that takes maybe $5 compared to $20 of buying a new XLR cable. Now, soldering is super easy, granted it becomes easier with a lot more practice. You're gonna burn yourself once or twice. Now we're gonna go over how to solder both sides, but really the main goal and the only thing you need to get out of this is that you need to solder each pin to its respective pin on the other side. So the number 1 pin needs to be soldered to number 1. Number 2 needs to be soldered to number 2. And number 3, pretty easy to guess, needs to be soldered to number 3. So for this video, I decided to fix up an old XLR that I had to take apart because I needed the ends for another cable, but now I have new ends that I can put on. We'll start with the female XLR end. To take it apart, obviously just unscrew the back end here, and then to get the piece inside out, it's easy if you push the button down, the release, and then you have to slowly work it out. Once you get past the spring, it's not too hard. Sometimes it gets stuck in there, so just take a pair of pliers or a screwdriver, tap it out the back end. After that, identify which one of these is which. So this is pin 1, pin 2, and pin 3. If you have some way to hold it together, a clamp like this is a really easy way to have everything held in place. Make sure you strip the wires back. Don't go too far because you don't need that much room to get everything on. A good practice to do when soldering is to twist the ends of the copper strands together. This helps tighten them up a little bit, and it's easier to work with it when everything is not so spread out in a fan. So the way these work, this is the grounding or the shielding. The red normally is the hot wire, so the positive wire, and then white or black, depending on the cable company, is the negative. And the way it goes is this is pin 1, pin 2, and pin 3. So what I like to do is I like to arrange the strands in the way they're going to be in relation to the XLR that I'm soldering. So if you remember, this is pin 1, pin 2, and pin 3. So I'm going to put the grounding on this side, stretch the red positive, which is going to 2 to the left side, and then keep the white center for the negative. Now I'm going to do what's called tinning, which helps keep all the strands together, makes it easier to solder everything into place. Just melt a little solder right onto the tip. That also makes it easier for it to connect over here later because the solder isn't getting absorbed into the cable. And then I also like to go ahead and just have a little puddle of solder right on the joint. Remember to always have a wet sponge or a little wet paper towel that you can use for your soldering iron to kind of cool it off and get any dirty solder or rosin or anything off of the end. After you have a little puddle of solder in all of those, you can go ahead and get started on soldering everything into place. But before you do that, you want to remember to put the back end on. You can do this before the strip or after the strip, but if you do it after you strip everything, do it after you tin everything, that way the cables don't get frayed. If you're a beginner especially, please use pliers for this part. I've gotten very good at using my hands and not getting burnt. I mean, granted, I will get burned occasionally, but it's easier to avoid that if you have a pair of pliers. From there, you can release it off of this. Now you just put the clamp on the cable. An easy way to do that is if you spread it with your fingers and just lay it in there as you pull your fingers out. Then line up the clamp with the mount piece. And then you want to slide the cover on. An easy way to do this, especially with the female side, don't do it where the button is pointed down. You want to flip it over to where the button is in like the release position so that the spring isn't fighting to get into place. See how easy that went in? That compared to doing it like this, where it's not releasing, allowing the cable to actually pass through. So again, flip it over, make sure it's released, and then you can just slide it all the way in. Then slide up the back and screw into place. And that's the one end. So now we'll repeat that process on this side, but I'm actually going to remember to put the back end on the XLR this time. You can slide it through. You just slide it back as far as you want to, as long as it's out of your way, it's fine. Push these out. It's easier to fit your finger in there to get this out on the back side, so you shouldn't need pliers to get it out. Now before, it went 1, 2, 3, but now since we're on the reversed opposite side, it's going to go 1, 2, 3. So the shield ground pin is going to be on this side, red is going to be there, and then white is going to be in the exact same place. All right, so I've twisted them all together. Now I'm just gonna tin up the ends. Add the puddle in. Remember to hold it in place until the solder has solidified. That way it doesn't fall out after you have let it go, because that can happen pretty often and it can be very frustrating because part of the cable will stay in there, part of it won't, but you won't have the full connection that you need. All right, and just like last time, slide your finger into the clamp. You can just pass it onto the cable, flip it around to line it up. This one you don't have to do anything specific to make sure it gets through, you just slide it on and then bring up the screw on back piece. And you're all done. If anyone's curious about some good cable ends that they can use, the ones that I used for this video are the newer XLR ends. I've never really used this company before, but I found them for a really good price and they ended up being some very quality ends in comparison to some other ones I've gotten recently. The other ones were made of some very cheap plastic and kind of came apart. I didn't realize that when I was first shopping for them. The newer are almost all metal. Everything is a great construction, and I've used them for a couple live events as well as some recording, and I have no complaints yet. Another good tool to have whenever you're making cables is a cable tester. You can find them for maybe 30, 50 bucks, I believe, but it is well worth it and is going to give you a lot of help. It makes it a lot easier rather than having to go in and manually test the cables. You just plug in each side corresponding to the correct cable, and then you can turn it and it will show you where each cable is connected. So it's showing that the 3-pin is going to 3 and the 2-pin is going to 2. 1 is going to 1. I think mine's just broken, so I don't have the 1 circuit going. It sends a little surge of electricity through the channel just to make sure it's reading it correctly on the other side. But thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this little tutorial helps you out a lot, and like I said, can save you a little bit of money in the future. I love giving out tips like this that can help out engineers down the line. The reason I made this video is because when I was learning how to solder, I didn't have a lot of tips and tricks and people walking through telling me how to do it very well. Luckily, I was able to learn the basics in a classroom, but I didn't have very much practice doing it because it was really only a short part of the class. But again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe down below. That would really help me out. Or maybe leave a comment down below saying something that you'd like to learn in the future. But either way, I'll see you next time.